in coming up, like I said, I worked as a set PA on a lot of stuff and was very observant as doing my job, obviously, but very observant of the ADs and what they were like. And like, I think every department in the film business, you will meet the worst, most horrible, awful people you've ever encountered in your entire life. But on the other hand, you will meet people that are so smart and so passionate and so talented and interesting and fun and amazing. So it was a real mix. I got to pick things that I never wanted to do and learn from their mistakes, as it were, and then learn not only the tenor of how a first AD would set the mood on the set and how they would move things forward. And so I had good examples and bad examples, and I worked for enough ADs that I got to take a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, and this, that, and the other, and mixed it and blended it into my own style, which I try, maybe not always succeed because it's a lot of pressure. Like, I have a huge amount of pressure to make the day. I have constantly got people up my butt all day, on my phone, on the walkie. It's just insane, like making the day and dissecting every single move I make. But in running the crew, I try very hard not to be one of those jerks that I worked under, screaming, yelling, demanding things that are unreasonable. One of the things I really learned is to know a little bit about every department enough so that I know what's reasonable to ask, and I know that it can be accomplished in this amount of time, but it's impossible to do in that amount of time. So I try to be very reasonable and work with people and foster a good attitude on set, because everybody is busting their ass to get a project done. And I think, you know, they need a little positive encouragement in doing that. And sometimes you do have to be the hammer, but select that. Don't just come in and be the jack-off from the first thing until the end of the day, because it's going to be a long day. So, in a nutshell, that's what I've learned from the people I work for.
Anybody else got something? No.
Yeah.
You got something? I can go. Yeah.
Yep. You know, film is very collaborative. I'm sure you've heard that in your entire lives, or that's why you've been studying. So for me, as a person who is, I guess, a boss to probably like 20 or 30 people, it's about empowering people. I think you want people to give the best that they can give and be the best that they can be. So I always try to do that. I also try to just be very well prepared. Film is a very expensive business. I had a professor tell me at one time that if you broke down the budget of a typical movie, it's like $5,000 a minute. So if you are holding up people or you aren't prepared, you're really costing somebody a lot of money. So, so be prepared and empower people. I think that's the most important thing, because I've certainly learned from people as well. So respect as well.
You know, it's interesting because every day I wake up and I remember that I was you sitting there. I'm reminded, obviously, being on the campus every day, but it wasn't. Although it seems a little bit long ago, the gray stuff going on the side here, it wasn't all that long ago, and I really was you, where I was sitting there, and the thing that I always wanted to do was soak in as much as I could from everyone. The one thing is that when you're working exactly what Steve and Greg said here, number one is you're working with experts. These people are experts at what they do. And if you're foolish enough not to listen to them, then you're not going to succeed. Because they have so much information and knowledge that now you can take and incorporate into what you're doing. That's the greatest experience for me, is being around people. Conversely, I love the fresh ideas that are given to me every day, whether it's students or peers or friends or colleagues. And then the other part is also the collaborative part, where that's exciting to me. I become myopic when I'm working on something, like many people do, as I always try to tell my students. I've already seen the film. I'm the only person on the planet that's seen the film already, that's either in my head or I'm working on it, because this is where it is. So when you're working on your projects, you know exactly how you want it to turn out. The object is that everybody else has to make that same thing with you. So when I'm around people like yourselves, you know, like Dawn Keyser sitting over here, you have no idea what she does for this whole Pittsburgh film community and what that office does for everyone. It's a freeing feeling when you know you have that kind of support that you can create and make your vision come true. So it's all about collaboration, not only with your peers that are up here, but it's people within the community.
I don't, the second part of the question is, what have you learned from being a boss to other people?
Yeah, or what have you learned from your bosses, and what have you learned from being somebody's boss?
So, it's interesting. There's this path that's been blazed already ahead of all of us, and we're all kind of going along behind it. Can you hear me? I'm sorry. I'm like really soft spoken. And I think respect both directions, and they've kind of hit on it, is a big one. Respect for the knowledge that people that have come before you can give you, and respect for the changing times that are coming ahead. We have some prop people in town that had to suck it up and learn computers from you guys. And I was in an interesting change when we all started getting cell phones and stuff to actually see that happening. We're very proud prop masters that are coming really close to the end of their career had to admit they screwed up when they used their cell phone with their phone number on camera and ended up having to change it because every Yahoo in their Iowa basement was calling, trying to get a hold of the teen heartthrob on his phone number because he called into a cell phone to make it ring, and he had to stop and listen to the kid that said, yeah, that's not how this works. You can actually set up a dumb anyway. So it's respect both directions. It's respect for what you guys can bring to the table, but it's also very important to remember that on your very last day before you go to retire, you still aren't going to know even a fraction of what there is out there to know. And we make movies on every subject imaginable, and every single job requires you. I was joking around with him earlier about my unmarketable skill sets. There have been so many things I had to learn. I had to go learn to be a barista a couple weeks ago, months ago, I guess. I had this really amazing opportunity to sit down with a man who's an expert in his field and one of the only people that could work these 100-year-old lathes that recorded music for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. We had a museum piece on set, and I got to go in and sit with this man and with the prop master and with a few other people that were going to be interacting with it and learn from them how to use it, how to operate it, how to repair it, because we had to sit alone with it when we had to fly to New Zealand or something with this other machine. But there's always going to be something you don't know. There's always going to be new technology, and having the respect for the people around you and their knowledge. My bosses are these guys in the art department office, but my bosses are also, and I had to learn this over time. My first job, I think, was probably a hot mess, disaster. I can't even imagine how bad I was. It was my first job. But over the years, I learned that you walk on set, and as the on-set dresser, your first day, you walk straight to the DP. Hi, I'm Mamie. I'm your on-set dresser. Whatever you need, let me know. I walk straight to the AD. Hi, I'm Mamie. I'm your on-set dresser. Whatever you need, let me know. I walk straight to the camera operators and I introduce myself to them. When the stunt coordinator shows up, I have to go straight to him. Hi, I'm Mamie. I'm your on-set dresser. If anything feels unsafe, if you have any questions, I'm here. Learning that I didn't have just these bosses, but the other departments, and maybe boss isn't the right word, but people that I had to respect their position in it and know that I'm working for them too, was really important. The effects people, we just did this goofy Seth Rogen project that I swear I owe them tuition money at this point. I don't know how the movie's going to turn out, but I learned, it's so screwy. It's either going to be amazing or you're recording this, I should. No, it's clever, but it's really like heady. But he's playing the same character, but he wanted to have his own beard, and so which required us. It was basically Groundhog's Day, and we just had Groundhog's Day times 2 because we had to do reshoots, where we had to shoot the entire movie, shave him, and then shoot the entire movie again with this crazy split screen thing, and doing a lot of this with an iPad, like while they onion skin pat. Anyway, but having to learn from them and knowing that I'm working for them too. So it's recognizing that they may not be your boss on paper, but each department's working for each other in the long run because it's a collaborative process. And what I've learned as being a boss, and again, boss is a weird word, but when they bring on a second unit, I can't be 2 places at once. So they'll bring on a second person, and I have to be able to let go, which is really hard for me because I'm super freaking controlling with the continuity. But learning to trust people and learning to trust that their skill set may be different than my skill set, if they can do it, and learning how when it's not working out to go and try to work it. I think that's been my hardest part about being, when I have an additional that's drinking coffee next to the first AD, or the DP at the DP's monitor, and I can go and say, don't do that's not, okay. Yeah, I'm really bad at that, so I guess what I've learned from it is that I need to work on it.
Well, I have one more question for you, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. So I hope that right now you are working on your burning questions that you need to ask as your homework. But the last question I have for you, I did not prep you on this question, so if you don't have an answer, it's okay. But you know, I know at the beginning of my career, I had no interest in work-life balance. But as we do this for a while, how do you manage work-life balance?